Hey guys, welcome back to Old World Wednesdays. Before I talk about the plans for today's video, I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone that continues to support the channels in all the myriad of ways it is possible to do so. Liking the videos, watching them, dropping comments, and making sure you're subscribed are huge and crucial things. And anyone out there who goes the extra mile and supports over on Patreon, you guys are incredible. You keep the lights on and the cameras rolling, so thank you from the bottom of my heart for that. If you're interested in getting involved with that, it is linked down in the description below. There's a million different reasons to get involved: extra videos, podcast episodes, private Discord server, monthly giveaways. So any of those things sound interesting to you, like I said, linked down below. Now, in the last two videos, we talked about what our future plans are for the old world, how I was a little bit uninspired when they changed up the rules and they kind of left us in the dark for a little while. And now I want to get back to it with a brand new army. We decided on that army being orcs last week. And in this week's video, we are going to tackle a unit. And I'm going to talk to you all about that in 1 second. So let me dive over and talk you through my plans for today's video. Okay, I managed to carve out some time on my Twitch stream last night to construct my first unit of Orc Boys. These are constructed from the Orc Boys and Orc Arrow Boys mob box set. So they're all the kind of monopose models, which I do not mind at all because they rank up really nicely. They're really nice designs, really nice poses. So I'm happy with that. I currently have the Animosity Orcs as the kind of unit filler, like kind of, I don't know, just a bit of extra kind of character in the unit. Does that look nice? I don't know. I've plans today to slapchop. For the first time ever, I'm going to try slapchop this whole unit, which means that all of these guys are going to be painted in a fairly fast and kind of easy standard. And I put a little bit more work into the animosity, so I'm not sure whether they're going to stand out and look a little bit weird or whether they're going to blend in and look great. I don't know. We'll have to tell at the end of this video. But by the end of this video, these hopefully will all be painted. And we can then decide whether we want to paint up two more and ditch the Animosity Orc vignette or whether we're happy enough to leave it in. So yeah, that's my plan for today's video. I have made the conscious decision that I want to try and slap chop this entire army because I cannot carve out enough time for all the different projects that I want to be working on currently. So this way I will get the models all with paint on them on the tabletop. I'm going to be rolling some dice in anger in a much more fast time frame words. So yeah, let's get these guys prepped for paint with some sprays and a dry brush, and then we'll go on and start tacking them with some paint. Okay, so here's me just getting the miniatures ready, lined up to be sprayed. I thought it was going to be slap chop. I'm going to try and do it a little bit my way, which is to, a lot of people just spray them black and then they do multiple layers of dry brushing through grays and up into whites. I decided to go from a spray of black into a spray of gray into a spray of white, kind of going at a sharper gradient each time, trying to save myself the time of having to go and dry brush up an entire unit of models. I will be leaning heavily on Army Painter speed paints for this. I have, I think, half of the speed paints. I got one of the smaller sets. And I haven't had a chance to really play around them, so I thought this would be a great opportunity to actually have a little fiddle and see what they're like. So I grabbed the one that was called Orc Skin, which seemed like an appropriate paint to grab to apply to the Orc Skin. And I just went to town. Now, the important thing to remember is that there has to be an order of operation when it comes to applying slap chop. I decided to go for the skin first because I don't want to be trying to paint the skin on after and getting like behind his neck or whatever and hitting his jacket, or you know what I mean. So I think this makes the most sense to start with. And the idea of dressing a miniature, which is a very old concept in miniature painting, which is when you're painting a miniature, you should be painting kind of the inner details first and then painting outwards from there, which will make it easier for yourself. Now, I did it. All the miniatures in the unit all got their skin done. And that took way, way, way longer than I was expecting. So I quickly reevaluated how much time I had in the day to get this little quick project done and realized that it was not going to happen. So I decided to once again abandon doing the entire unit and jump straight into doing the front rank. Let me get the first 7 guys fully done with the banner and the musician and the champion so that I can at least look down at the unit and see the front rank done and what that looks like. So that was what I thought was a good idea to kind of pivot towards. So I quickly did the back 2 ranks, got them lined up on their tray, and then put them to one side so I could finally move on with the front rank. This is me trying to make them fit together, which in the old world is a thing you have to learn with your units. Who sit next to who and how do they rank up nice and neatly and so on and so forth. Okay, with the skin done, the next color we decided to kind of tackle with was the trousers. So for this, I decided to go for a dusk red. I didn't want to go for dark brown and black and have it a really dark miniature. I wanted to make it a little bit more kind of bright. If I'm not going to be kind of leaning on, you know, edge highlighting and highlights and all that kind of stuff to make the model look really nice, I thought if I go for slightly more interesting colors for the slapchop, that would kind of, you know, make the model stand out a little bit more. And to my own credit, I do think this kind of dark reddish color does work a treat for being like a kind of a lush brown leather color. And I was happy that I went for it. Maybe I only went for it because I only had a couple of brown speed paints from the set. Like I said, I don't have the full set of Army Painter speed paints. And the only other brown I have was a really dark brown. I didn't want to do that. I knew I was going to do the belts and his boots and stuff in black. So I'd have a really dark brown and then really dark black next to each other, making up the kind of majority of the bottom half of the miniatures. Wasn't kind of appealing to me. I also used this color for the skins stretched over the drums, which I thought was quite a clever use of that color as well, because it does look like a kind of a stretched human skin almost a little bit, which then makes you wonder where these orcs got their pants from, which is kind of worrying. Beowulf blue. I was going to do red, but then I remembered that I do too much red and I don't do nearly enough blue. My entire 40k orc army is done in red, so I decided, you know what, let's go pick up the book. Let's go look at some of the actual clans that are fighting through the old world right now. And one of the more predominant clans uses blue coloring, so I decided, you know what, let's do that. So the Beowulf blue, and I applied this across all of the cloth that exists on these models. And then some other kind of other bits and pieces that I can think of. So for instance, this guy's a little bit of a bull helmet, but there's like 4 inset panels, so I decided to do those in blue. And then, of course, assault things like the banner and get the blue done on that as well, which is a bit nerve-wracking. Like before, whenever I did a speed paint or a contrast or anything like that on a flat surface, I knew that I was going to be coming back to it later on and doing some layering and tidying it up and stuff like that. So I didn't need to worry so much about if there was a little bit of a pooling issue or if there was a little bit of a brush streak or anything like that. With this, I'm trying to avoid having to go back, which means I have to kind of use all of my painting know-how when it comes to speed paints to try and manipulate this color to not pool in weird ways and look kind of awful. It was a whole process, but I'm glad I did. I'm still not 100% sure whether we're going to be leaving these miniatures as just slap chopped or whether we want to push them forward. By the time we get to the end of this video, maybe we'll have a better inclination of that, and maybe you guys can help me out with making that decision. About halfway through a paint job is when I throw the texture paste on, because I'm so adamant on using texture paste these days. I hate getting to like, the model is fully painted. Oh, now I want a basics. I want to see it finished. And then I put the texture paste on and then I have to leave it for 2 or 3 hours for that to dry. That drives me insane. So about halfway through a paint job is when I throw the texture paste on so that I can then continue painting the miniature. And by the time the miniature is fully painted, the texture paste is dry. I can dry brush it up, throw some static grass on it, and have a completed base. So this is the speed paint black, which I forgot to show to the camera which one that's called. It should be on my desk here. Grim Black is what it's called. So Grim Black speed paint was used for belts and pouches and boots and a few other bits and pieces, handles of swords and stuff if you can get in at them. They're going to get done with that. Murder Scene is just a really nice dark winey red color, and I decided to feed that directly into the mouth and basically fill the entire mouth cavity with this paint. My thought process was that if I ever go back and do more on this, all I would like to do is highlight the teeth, and the Murder Scene color will work beautifully for the interior of the mouth, the tongue, in between the gums, all that kind of bits and pieces, and then just a little bit of bone color on the teeth and you're kind of laughing. Bony matter was used for all of the, obviously the skeleton, skull, bones, and then all of the straps, the kind of wrapped straps that exist across these models are going to get done with this. So like the bit holding on the banner pole there, just one singular coat makes quite a huge difference to what the model looks like. Broadsword silver, which is kind of an interesting one to do metallics in a speed paint fashion. I know there's a little bit of controversy out there as to whether these are good. They do an okay job for me. Like I said, anytime I've used them before, they've then gotten shaded down and then I've layered them up and it's given me a fairly nice result. So it's a way of adding a very simple and effective and fast base coat to models. But obviously then moving forward, if I'm just going to be leaving it with broadsword silver, does it do the job and does it look nice? That's an interesting one. It doesn't look the best when it's just left, to be honest. I should have probably just used a lead belcher and just hand painted on those sections. One of the other kind of difficult things about the broadsword paint as well, when you kind of pour a bit of it out onto a palette, into a well or something like that, and you're working from it, the metallic flakes sink so fast and it separates from the medium so fast that basically every time you put your brush back in to collect a little bit more of the paint, you have to kind of give it a little bit of a swirl to mix it again. If you forget to do this, then you don't get as much silver flakes and you just get these kind of like gray pigmented medium, and it's just doesn't look nice at all. So it's almost like I wish the whole pot was in a vortex mixer constantly as I'm using it. Maybe that would make life a little bit easier. Who knows? To finish off the base, it's just a dry brush of a nice orange and then a dry brush of a nice bone color. Obviously getting lighter with each step. And that gives me the kind of result that I like for what natural soil looks like. I went away and I rimmed the bases black to make them nice and neat and tidy. And then I've got this nice vibrant static grass that I decided it's going to be the static grass color that I use for all of this fantasy orc army. So obviously these guys are coming out of the Badlands and assaulting the kind of western side of the Empire and dwarves and all those kind of bits and pieces. So it's going to be quite an interesting fight. A friend of mine does have a large dwarf army and he's looking forward to playing through the missions and campaigns that come with the dwarves and the orcs. And I think that'd be a fantastic thing to do. I play some thematic and themed games and see if the orcs can stand up to the dwarven gun line. After this, I am going to go away and give you some kind of last minute feedback. I basically left the models for a day and then came back and did the outro and my kind of last thoughts and feelings because I really wanted to sit and kind of digest how I felt about the experience of painting with slapchop and what I thought the result was. So yeah, I just wanted to give myself a little bit of time because sometimes you just get a little bit blinded by, sitting here painting the same model all day and you can have kind of negative effects on your own mind when it goes to explaining it. Okay, I did not achieve a full unit done with slapchop. I quickly realized after the first coat that that wasn't going to happen. So I instead kind of switched gears and I focused on the front rank. Can I get the front rank done? And that's what I did work through and achieved in today's video. As goes thoughts and feelings on how the models look. Well, let's jump over, get the camera on the miniatures, and then we'll kind of talk through how I feel about how they turned out and kind of go from there. Okay, so this is the unit as it currently stands. You can see the front rank, like I said, has got color on it. And honestly, this is the next day. I finished these guys off yesterday, and I was kind of a little bit disheartened by the end of the day with how the miniatures looked. I'm not sure whether I wanted to continue it on with the entire project. Like this is what a orc boy is going to look like slap chopped. Here's the finished result. And my brain is just screaming to kind of wash it down and start layering it up. And like I said, I'm not sure whether it looks amazing, but my brain is then trying to like convince itself it's not supposed to look amazing individually. You're supposed to paint up the entire army. Like if this entire unit was done, the unit would look fairly impressive. And if you deployed it across the battlefield from enemy, they're not going to notice that there's some detail left off and it's not layered up. They're just going to see a fully painted unit. At least that's my thoughts and feelings. So as it currently stands, do I love slapchop? No. Will I continue doing this army in slapchop? Yes, because I do want to see the result of an entire army done with slapchop. And if I get to the very end and I'm like, I don't like where this looks, at least all the base coats are on. I can just throw a wash and start layering up the project after that and go from there. But this is supposed to be a time-saving endeavor in order to get a couple of more old world armies kind of ready to rock and roll kind of as quickly as possible so that I can start getting some games in. So let me know what you think of the final result of these miniatures in the comments below. Let me know, do you use slapchop? What are your thoughts and feelings on it? And yeah, maybe I can try some more stuff moving forward. But by the time we get to next week's video, I want to have this entire unit done, and then I'll move over to like the boar boys or the black orcs or maybe some of the chariots, and we'll go from there.